Hi guys! Today, my topic will be about profit, loss, and break-even point. So as always, kindly prepare your notebook and pen and listen carefully. For our objectives, you will be able to determine if profit or loss expressed in percentage and net profit or loss amount achieved in a given transaction. 2. You will be able to prepare a simple income statement for a trading firm. 3. Solve business transactions on how profit or loss is obtained. And last, determine the break-even point. While for our learning competencies today, you need to differentiate profit from loss. You need to illustrate how profit is obtained and how to avoid loss in each transaction. You also need to define break-even and also illustrate how to determine break-even point. For our first step, we have profit. Profit is what remains of the selling price or sales after all costs and expenses had been deducted. So it is the difference between what a merchant invests into a business and what he receives in return. And the ultimate goal of any business, whether it is a retail or wholesale, is to earn a profit. And last, when there is a profit, the revenue is greater than the variable cost plus fixed cost. So sa Tagalog, profit is yung kita, yung kinita mo. So paano natin masasabing kumita yung isang business? Siyempre, dapat dun sa total sales mo, pag binawas mo yung nagastos mo para dun sa mga goods na tinitinda mo, meron ka pang matitira. Kaya yung formula natin is selling price or the net sales minus cost price. So, dapat mas malaki yung net sale mo o yung benta mo kumpara sa ginastos mo. For us to better understand the concept, we have an example. Chen is engaged in a buy and sell business of perfumes. He bought 10 boxes of perfumes, and each box costs 12,000 pesos and contains a dozen of perfumes. He is planning to sell one perfume bottle at 1,500. So, what is his expected profit on 10 boxes of perfumes? So, for our given, we have 10 boxes of perfumes containing a dozen of bottle. Thus, we have a total of 120 bottles of perfume. So, for the cost price, we have 12,000 pesos for each box. And the selling price of the perfume bottles would be 1,500 each. So, for our solution, the formula for profit is net price minus cost price. So, kailangan natin munang kunin yung net price and yung cost price. So, for the selling price, sabi, si Chen daw, ibibenta niya yung perfume bottles for 1,500 each. And since we have 120 bottles, then the net sales would be the selling price multiply the quantity. So we have 1,500 times 120 bottles, then the net sales would be 180,000 pesos. And for the cost, we have 12,000 per box. Since Chen bought 10 boxes, then the cost price would be cost times the quantity. So we have 12,000 times 10. So the cost price would be 120,000 pesos. And next, for the profit, so we have net price minus cost price. So 180,000 pesos minus 120,000 pesos, then the total profit of Chen for the 10 boxes of perfume bottle is 60,000 pesos. Next, we have loss. Loss occurs when the cost and expenses exceed the selling price or sales. These are cases in which the net sales of goods are less than its cost. So when there is a loss, the revenue is less than the variable cost and the fixed cost. So for our formula, we have loss equals cost price minus selling price. For example, Annie bought 1 dozen smartphones for 200,000 pesos with a discount of 5%. She sold half dozen at a price of 18,000 per unit. However, a new model of smartphone became available in the market, so she sold the remaining half dozen at 12,000 each unit. So what was her profit or her loss? So for the given, we have 1 dozen of smartphones worth 200,000 pesos with 5% discount. So we just have to remove the 5% discount, then we'll get the final cost price, which is 190,000 pesos. So another, we have half dozen sold at 18,000 per unit, and last we have half dozen sold at 12,000 per unit. For our solution, our working formula is loss equals cost price minus net sales. So on our previous slide, we have the value of cost price, which is 190,000 pesos. And now, solving for net sales. So first, for half dozen sold at 18,000 pesos, we have 18,000 times 6, so we get 108,000 pesos. And for the other dozen, half dozen rather, sold at 12,000 pesos, we have 12,000 times 6, so we get 72,000 pesos. And adding both net sales, we have the total net sales of 180,000 pesos. So solving for the loss, cost price minus net sales, so we have 190,000 pesos minus 180,000 pesos. So the total loss is 10,000 pesos. So ibig sabihin, nalugi ng 10,000 pesos si Annie. For the last step, we have break-even point. So break-even point or BEP is that point where a business neither makes a profit or a loss. So meaning, bawi-bawi lang, nabawi yung gastos dun sa kinita. So at the break-even point, a business revenue is equal to its total costs. Inasmuch as there is no profit or loss at the break-even point, the revenue will equal total costs. So our break-even point, the revenue is just equal to the variable cost and the fixed cost. So there are two ways in solving the break-even points. One is break-even point in number of units and the other is in peso. So BEP in number of units, we have X equals FC all over quantity P minus V. Then in BEP in peso, we have P times X, where P is the unit price, X is the number of units or the BEP in number of units, V is the variable cost per unit, and the last is FC, which is for total fixed cost. So example, calculate the break-even point in sales unit and sales in peso from the following information. So we have the given unit price equals 20 pesos, variable cost equals 8 pesos, and the fixed cost is 12,000 pesos. For the solution, first in BEP in units, we have X equals FC all over quantity P minus V. So substitution, we get 12,000 pesos all over quantity 20 minus 8 pesos. So the BEP in units is 1,000 units. So for the BEP in peso, we have P times X, unit price times the number of units. So we have 20 pesos times 1,000. So sa BEP in peso, the final answer is 20,000 pesos. So for our conclusion, please memorize these formulas by heart. Number 1, profit equals selling price minus cost price. The next is loss equals cost price minus selling price. For break-even points, we have two formulas. First, BEP in units, which is equal to FC all over quantity P minus V. Another is BEP in peso, which is the multiplication of unit price and the number of units. Next, we have to familiarize the formula for cost price, which is selling price minus profit or selling price plus loss. Another one, selling price equals cost price plus profit or cost price minus loss. For the last, we have profit or loss percent, which is equal to total profit or loss all over cost price times 100. So that's all for me, guys, today. I hope you learned something. You can now proceed answering your modules. If you have any questions, clarifications, kindly send me a personal message. So that's all. Have a nice day.